first step is to figure out how much water to put in your EverGreen helper. To do this, we need to examine our Christmas tree stands. The upper level is determined by where your stand is going to leak water. In the case of this stand, the screw goes through the side of the stand. You want to make sure the water level never rises up to the level of the screw. Similarly, the lower level in this stand is not at the bottom of the stand. There's a spike in the bottom that holds your Christmas tree in place. This raises the level of the bottom of your tree by a full inch from the bottom of the stand. If we look at another stand, in this stand, the screws are above the rim of the stand. So here's the top level for our upper level mark. Again, we have a spike in the bottom. So the lower level mark is going to be a little bit above where we think the bottom of the stand is. Let's mark the lines in this stand. Here's my maximum level. If I come down that half of an inch, there's my upper water level. Again, coming up from the bottom, there's the top of my spike. I'm going to come just above that. Right about there is the lower water level. You'll notice that the spigot is always below the lower water level. Now let's look at this other stand. This time I'm going to try using a ballpoint pen. My upper level, just below the top of the stand. This pen doesn't work very well. If that's the case, you can solve that problem with a piece of tape. Put that right on your stand. A little bit below. Here's my upper level. Remember to leave room for your spike. Come up a little bit more. There's my lower water level. The last thing you may want to examine before you get your tree in the stand is where you're going to attach the tubing. In this case, I like to attach it around one of these screws, either on the inside of the stand, or if you prefer, on the outside of the stand. With our other stand, the same holds true. You can either attach the tubing as it runs over the edge on the outside, or on the inside of the screw. So it's tight, the tubing is set.
The EverGreen helper left the factory watertight. Let's make sure it stayed that way. You're going to want to take your EverGreen helper to a sink. Since I don't have a sink, I'm going to be using this bowl to replicate one. Make sure that the end of your tubing feeds into the sink. Next, you're going to want to fill your EverGreen helper with water to the upper water level line. Check for leaks, specifically around the bar. Now check that water flows freely through the tubing by lifting up the EverGreen helper. Water should be flowing through the tube. After that's all done, make sure to empty the water out of your EverGreen helper. If the tubing comes out of your Christmas tree stand, it's going to make a big mess. So I'm going to show you how to secure it properly so that doesn't happen. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the tubing is free of kinks and curls. Next, you take the tubing and you make sure that the open end of the tubing is at the bottom of the Christmas tree stand. Then you take your fat twist tie, put it around the tubing and around the point that you're securing it to, and make sure to secure it so that it's not pinching the tube. After that, make sure that there's no other kinks in the tube so that water can flow freely to the Christmas tree stand.
Now it's time to put the EverGreen helper to work. All you have to do, remove the lid, you fill it full of water, You want to fill it all the way to the upper water level. This may take more than 1 or 2 trips back to the faucet. Once the water level reaches the upper water mark, put your lid on so you don't splash. You simply raise the EverGreen helper up above the level of the Christmas tree stand, and the water starts to flow into the stand. Now you can put your EverGreen helper back down, and we'll wait for a couple of minutes, and we'll see that the water level slowly drops as the stand starts to fill. Now that the water level has stopped dropping, it's time to fill it back up to the upper mark. At this point, you might want to sneak a hand under the tree and just make sure you can feel water is up near the top of the stand, which it is. Now close up the EverGreen helper. You're ready to go.
Let's keep your thirsty tree happy and healthy. You'll find that on the first day, your tree will consume an enormous amount of water. So after about 4 hours, it's a good idea to come back to your EverGreen helper, observe the water, add more up to the upper level, not a bit further. And just to make sure everything's flowing really well, I like to lift it up. Make sure the water's flowing through and there are no air bubbles. And we're done. Until the next time we come and check the water level. Alright then, the holiday season is over. Your tree was much happier this year than last. And it's time to put everything away. Note, we don't touch any part of the EverGreen helper barb here. We're going to work over here in with the tree stand. Untwist the tie, put it aside for next year. Then we reach in and bring the tube out, pointing up and raising it above the level of the EverGreen helper. And we're done. All we have to do now is go to the kitchen and pour out the water.
Let's try a thing here in the middle. Ah.
Should I put this in like a Christmas tree present? A Christmas...
So you don't ever want to let your tree go dry if you can if you can avoid it.
Take the lid off of your EverGreen helper. Take the lid off of your EverGreen helper. Take the lid off of your EverGreen helper.
That's dumb. But if you hide your Christmas...
Your EverGreen helper left the factory
Watertight.
watertight. Okay.
It actually doesn't effectively change anything. That's dumb.
Now what?
After all that, you're gonna want to take your I don't know.
Now what?
Fill it back up. Give it a little lift. No, not in that part. No. Ah.
Now let's keep your tree. Do it again. We also purchase carbon offsets. You're gonna have to.
Mm-hmm.
We are donating to.
Well, that's up to the buyers, Margaret.
Well, no, that's the point is that it should be.
I understand that LevGo is also trying to create an impact for the environment.
Check your Never mind. Do it again. The first thing we want to do is I totally got lost there. Sorry. All right then, the holiday season is over.